Good morning, Mark Frederic, Le Charcuterie Anglais here. I want to tell you a funny story, something that had happened, it has to be 10, 12 years ago, something like that. Not sure of the time scale exactly, but I remember the incident. It's not an incident, but I remember the occasion really well, because I've told the story verbally hundreds of times. I'm guessing. Excuse me for coughing. And it was back in the days when I was, at my height and really busy teaching butchery and charcuterie at around mainland Europe and occasionally in Asia. And but at the time, it was predominantly in the UK where I was teaching, all over. And to all kinds of people. And on this occasion, and I'm not going to disclose who these people are or even where they are, for good reason, because I don't want them to be recognised and penalised in any way. But the story, all the same, is worth telling. So I was contacted by some organic farmers, mixed farmers, and they had beef and poultry and one thing at other. And they were in a beautiful location, and they asked me if I'd teach them certain aspects of charcuterie and aspects of butchery. Oh, again, I apologise, coughing. So I duly took the task on, and I went to visit these people, and we went through the introduction. And they were typical farming family who were trying to find a way in the marketplace, and they were diversifying or had been diversifying for quite some time, actually. They had their own little butchery, converted one of their buildings to a nice little butchery, and it was mainly frozen meat because of their location and what they had, and they could only produce from stock of their own. That was their choice, to produce only from their own stock. So the stock wasn't available weekly. So when it was processed, invariably it got frozen down, and people, for those who would travel to this location, would purchase the meat. They did quite well locally around the village, and they always had that support. But further afield, it took longer to reach people. So their products were mainly frozen, some fresh, but mainly frozen. Nothing wrong with that. You have to do what you have to do to survive, and this is what this farming family were doing to survive. But they wanted to take it up to the next level type of thing. And they actually employed a part-time butcher who come in when he was needed to do the work, and they wanted to retain this butcher, and the way to do it was to find him more work. Hence me coming in, teaching them new products, blah blah blah, and in the hope they could adopt some of them and work from there. So anyway, when I eventually got to the farm and met up with them, nice typical family. That I don't want to sound rude, but they were a bit know-it-all already. Of course they didn't, but but some people do come with that. Do I say attitude? But anyway, they employed me all the same to teach their butcher stuff, and occasionally they took part in the classes as well. But anyway, let me get to the story. As I was discussing all their frozen produce, and they had glass top chest freezers, normal chest freezers, and glass door vertical freezers. So for people who visited the farm, they could see through the glass in the freezers and take out what they wanted, and make those purchases from that. but they were telling me a story, having built up this little frozen meat business. It all came to a crashing end, got stopped by their local EHO. For those who don't know, an EHO is an environmental health officer, so like the local food police, if you like, So on one of their inspections, they decided, as they haven't got the means to fast freeze, they weren't going to allow them to sell their frozen food from food, or it was the meat, through conventional freezing, because they was claiming that couldn't be done safely due to the time period it takes from raw to frozen. I won't go into details now for this story, but you can prove it works, but that's another story. So anyway, this farming family were thinking, crikey, what they're gonna do, like, So this frozen meat part of their business was going to come crashing down until they had the means to freeze the meat within a certain time frame. And the only way really to do it is to have a fast freezer. So these fast freezers, they can freeze products in minutes, depending on what it is. It can freeze stuff in minutes. So, but they couldn't afford one. Why? Because there were thousands at the time, thousands, still are, thousands and thousands of pounds to buy. And it was just too big of a purchase for this farming family to buy one. They just couldn't do it. So they thought, oh, sugar. The whole project, the investment over the years, which, they were, you could clearly see they were putting in every penny they possibly could to make this little business work. And it was a small business, a tiny business really. And it was a real shame that, given their location and everything, they just couldn't be viable doing it any other way. It wouldn't survive as a fresh meat business. It just wouldn't get off the ground. So they thought that was the end. However, this is where the funny part comes in. This is where the farming, or the farmers and the butcher, all together, collectively, I give credit for this. They were at a catering sale, and it is as obvious as what it sounds. It's an auction sale where you can buy all kinds of catering equipment, kitchen equipment, restaurant equipment, for food businesses. And whilst they were there, they spotted a fast freezer, blast freezer they were called, not fast, blast, a blast freezer, and but it was broken, and it was there was a sign on it, sold for parts. I don't know I no longer remember the brand of this blast freezer or anything else, but who on earth is going to buy a blast freezer for parts? You're going to be damn lucky to find a customer to do that. You never know. Stranger things happen, don't they? And anyway, these farmers and the butcher that was with them, they all thought, oh, eureka. So they bidded for this blast freezer, which was bust and wouldn't work without spending perhaps as much money on it to fix it. It would cost as much as a new one, or almost. So they bidded on it. In fact, they were their only bidder, and they got it for £25. It's nothing, is it? £25 is nothing. I'm laughing now because I know what's coming. So they took this blast freezer on, dusted it down, cleaned it out, one thing and another, and put it on the one of the worktops in the butchery. And hey presto, there it is, this blast this blast freezer, included in their business, So next visit, EHO, when he came along, he noticed the blast, the blast freezer. In fact, it was brought to his attention. It didn't work, but he didn't know that, And they got this ban, shall we call it a ban, lifted, so as they were able to reintroduce their frozen meat sales, which basically helped save the butchery part of the business. I doubt if the farming side of the business would have been truly affected. Certainly the farm business would have been a lot poorer, had they not been able to sell frozen meat. But anyway, it's meant like they could keep on going selling frozen meat. And when I was in the butchery, the butcher was telling me, he said it's ever so funny. He said, because of our location and that, they always let us know when they come in to visit to inspect us. So we always ensure we are not in the process of freezing meat down on that particular day. We've always got other tasks to do, or it's on one of our closed days, where they're not open to the public or whatever. They just open the butchery facility to allow him to walk around and do his inspection. So it always got the tick. It always got the tick in the box. The business was always granted that got the green flag to sell frozen meat, all because they've got a blast freezer. But what the EHO never knew, and still doesn't to this day, to my knowledge, is that blast freezer, £25 worth of blast freezer, was enabling them to stay alive in business. And I think of this a lot, and I remember the butcher saying, he said that was the best £25 we have ever spent in this business. And he said, fair play to him at the time for having the foresight to buy this knackered piece of kit to put in the business to trick, I suppose, the EHO in thinking, all right, they're doing it properly now. They've invested, they've invested wisely, and they're doing everything okay. And all these years, well, even before that took place, there was never an issue with their frozen food, ever. And of course, since that purchase, albeit it's never been used, there still hasn't been an issue with the frozen food, and they still freeze the food like they've been doing for probably 20 years or more, and that's through conventional freezing. Of course, like they pay attention, as to how they do it, and they do it safely. It's just not in accordance what the EHOs like, because you know what they're like, the EHOs. I mean, they're there for a good reason. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes it's just like overkill, isn't it? So, but anyway, this story, just keeps going around in my head from time to time, and it's. I've been spinning the story again just past few days, and I thought, I've got to put this into a video just to share it. You may not find it interesting, and for those who are not interested, I apologise. Well, I've got nothing to apologise for, but I understand. No worries, But for those who do find it funny, for those who do or have gone through similar scenarios with EHOs, it's great sometimes to get one over on your local EHO, but we'll keep quiet, so hence me not saying who these people are or where they are, or I'm only telling you that they're organic mixed farmers in a lovely location. One thing to finish with, perhaps, probably about 6 months after I'd spent some time with these farmers, or mainly their butcher, and having taught them charcuterie and one thing and t'other, they actually went on to win some top awards from an organic association, for food awards. So so I was rather pleased when I saw that. So I felt like what I what I did contributed a little bit to their success. So I mean, they were already successful, but in their own way. So but I just helped a little bit just to get them to that award level, which I'm proud of. In fact, quite a few people I've taught have done exactly the same. So anyway, that's old stuff, but the story is still there. But, I hope you enjoyed listening to it. So it's the one and probably rare time you can get one over on your EHO, and this particular story happens to be a good one, for me, and I still laugh at it today. And I ought to get in touch really and ask them, do you still have that broken blast chiller in your butchery? Are you still kidding your EHO? But there we are. I'm not going to, but there we are. All right, I'm off. But have yourselves a good day. Toodaloo.